So there is a lot of discussion going on about adult benefits, and I see this discussion of a guaranteed livable income as being one part of this overall discussion that's going on. Just want to sketch out 4 main proposals that I'm aware of that are around. One of them I'll characterize as the neoliberal proposal. And there's a proposal for a working income tax credit. And this appeared in the May 2006 budget of the Federal Conservatives. It had first been proposed in November 2005 by the Liberals. They weren't around to implement it, and it actually wasn't very strong on details. But basically it ends up being a subsidy for very low wages, and it's not put in the context of reform of any other part of the system, and it's proposed as a way to kind of reward people for getting off social assistance. You know, there's trying to make work pay for people who are in the lowest paid jobs. So it's not associated in any way with a right. It's seen as a reward, you know, for going into the workforce, and it's certainly not adequate. There's something that has emerged in Toronto, and maybe there's similar things going on here, which I would call a liberal reform proposal. We have something called the Toronto City Summit, which puts itself forward as an alliance of a wide range. The Labour is listed as a participant, but doesn't fully support a lot of the proposals that they put out. They had a task force on the modernization of income security for working age adults, and they came out last spring with a proposal for an adult benefit program which would consist of 2 kinds of refundable tax benefits. So again, these are refundable tax credit you get whether or not you have any kind of income at all. So you'd, if you hadn't had no income, then you get the full benefit. And that this proposal has 2 parts to it. One is a basic benefit, and this is most like a guaranteed livable income, but it's very low, what they're proposing. The second part of theirs is a working income benefit, and so that people who were in the labor force would get this on top of the basic benefit. And the eligibility for this would be 50 hours a month of work, or a minimum income of $4,800 a year. And the maximum benefit would be $200 a month. And again, as your income went up, it would be taxed back. So this philosophy is very different than the one in the PIC2 statement, as is the one on the working income supplement, because the assumption is that people are to be rewarded for going into the paid labor force.
I think it's important not to call $150 a month livable. That's what we call a guaranteed starving income.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I agree with you. What I think the overall concept here is, now that we have this children's benefit in place, is that there is the interest in some kind of adult benefit, right? There's a recognition that people aren't getting subsistence, and these are the main ways it's being approached. So umbrella term rather than guaranteed livable income would be adult benefits. The third approach, I think, to quote adult benefits and to some kind of a guaranteed annual income is the traditional position of the labor movement. And the traditional position of the labor movement, which I think is largely the one that is still being promoted, is that there is a right to an adequate standard of living. Labor is a supporter of it as a human right, but it's primarily around, with the wage being very central to it, and a job, a good job, and very central to. So the position is that a living wage should be achieved through regulation, reform collective bargaining legislation, enforcement of minimum standards, higher minimum wage is very important to it, restoration of employment insurance system, and a more generous system of social assistance. And for the most part, labor does not see the need for an alternative to social assistance, because the alternative is a wage and a good job. And the fourth position is some kind of guaranteed annual income or livable income, or a basic wage, and it's being proposed under a lot of different umbrellas, and there are many variants to it. A way I would distinguish it is, first of all, the notion that it is a right to have an adequate annual living or an adequate livable income, but also that it sees a replacement of social assistance. And to me, this is pretty central to it, that a recognition that the existing, even with a restoration of the Canada Assistance Plan, and there's some people who approach it for a need to bring back something like the Canada Assistance Plan. I see this perspective as saying no, that actually we can't really reform social assistance. We need something that is an alternative to that. And Kathleen has outlined what the proposal is that has come forward from women's organizations, and I think the Pictou statement is a very eloquent elaboration of the UN fundamental right to an adequate standard of living. I mean, it's a really very wonderful statement. There are people who are putting this forward from a non-feminist perspective, and one organization that was very instrumental around the Canada Child Benefit is the Caledon Institute. And the Caledon Institute has been playing around with different ways to get at the notion of either a basic wage or a basic benefit, and they put forward different ideas about it. But they are very clear that the system of social assistance should be replaced by a federal a system of income support, which they see as existing in conjunction with employment insurance at this point, sort of in the way that the old age security system works. In fact, the child tax benefit, if it has put in place a system for income-tested benefits, you might not want to use that, but the difference between a guaranteed livable income or any version of these and welfare is that it's income tested. So it's not somebody looking through all your bills and so it is much more consistent with the notion of a right, and there is a mechanism in place to deliver it. I don't think that is actually going to be a complicated piece. The complicated piece about it is that it does in fact strengthen the working class generally, because you don't have, right now welfare is so low that you have desperate people who have to work illegally. You can't survive on social assistance, which, you would know. And so it depresses all the wages, and you have completely scared people who are very desperate. And in that sense, it is a measure that strengthens the capacity to resist. So I think in class terms, it is, and I think there's a huge problem with labor not understanding what's going on with social assistance.